Hare Krishna, Prabhuji Mataji. Welcome to all of you in today's discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. We will discuss whatever Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada guides us. But before that, let us prepare ourselves. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivar Dhari Jaya Girivar Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivar Dhari Jaya Girivar Dhari Jai Shodanandan Vraj Jana Ranjana Yashodanandan Vraj Jana Ranjana Yashodanandan Vraj Jana Ranjana Yamna Tira Vanchari Yamna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी। श्री राधा माधव जी की, श्री ललिता विशाखा राधे श्याम जी की, श्री कृष्ण बलराम की, गौर नित्याई जी की, शिला प्रभुपाद की, शिला गुरुदेव की, नित्याई गौर प्रेमानंदे। हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी माता जी। From the Krishna's lotus mouth, whatever has come to us in the form of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, it is non-different from Krishna himself. The words of Krishna in front of us gives us the feeling as if we are associating with Krishna. There is absolutely no difference, Prabhuji Mataji. So let us pray, all the acharyas, and take their blessings, all the Vaishnavas sitting here, so that whatever we discuss on the matters subject of today's discussion, it could be in accordance with the scriptures. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swamarupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutupadkamlam Shri Gurun Vaisnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Segan Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Segan Lalita Shri Visakhanvitam. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate गोपेश गोपिका कांत श्री राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभान सुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. So today we will discuss from the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita titled Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, and verse is 22nd. puruṣaḥ prakṛti-sthaḥ hi bhuṅkte prakṛti-jān guṇān kāraṇaṁ guṇa-saṅgaḥ asya sad-asad-yoni-su janmasu puruṣaḥ prakṛti-stho hi bhuṅkte prakṛti-jān guṇān kāraṇaṁ guṇa-saṅgo asya sad-asad-yoni-janmasu puruṣaḥ prakṛti-stho hi bhuṅkte prakṛti-jān guṇān kāraṇaṁ guṇa-saṅgo asya sad-asad-yoni-janmasu puruṣaḥ prakṛti-stho hi bhuṅkte prakṛti-jān guṇān kāraṇaṁ guṇa-saṅgo asya sad-asad-yoni-janmasu. Hare Krishna. puruṣaḥ prakṛti-stho hi bhuṅkte prakṛti-jān guṇān kāraṇaṁ guṇa-saṅgo asya sad-asad-yoni-janmasu puruṣaḥ prakṛti-stho hi bhuṅkte prakṛti-jān guṇān kāraṇaṁ guṇa-saṅgo asya sad-asad-yoni-janmasu puruṣaḥ prakṛti-stho hi bhuṅkte prakṛti-jān guṇān kāraṇaṁ guṇa-saṅgo asya sad-asad-yoni-janmasu puruṣaḥ prakṛti-stho hi bhuṅkte prakṛti-jān guṇān kāraṇaṁ guṇa-saṅgo asya sad-asad-yoni-janmasu. Matajis. puruṣaḥ prakṛti-stho hi bhuṅkte prakṛti-jān guṇān kāraṇaṁ guṇa-saṅgo asya sad-asad-yoni-janmasu puruṣaḥ prakṛti-stho hi bhuṅkte prakṛti-jān guṇān kāraṇaṁ guṇa-saṅgo asya sad-asad-yoni-janmasu. Hare Krishna. Please repeat. puruṣaḥ, the living entity. prakṛti-sthaḥ, being situated in the material energy. He certainly bhuṅkte, enjoys. prakṛti-jān, produced by the material nature. guṇān, the modes of nature. kāraṇaṁ, the cause. guṇa-saṅgaḥ, the association with the modes of nature. asya, of the living entity. sat-asat, in good and bad. yoni, the species of life. janmasu, in births. Translation purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Please hear. The living entity in the material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. Please repeat. The living entity in the material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. Please hear the wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada. This verse is very important for an understanding of how the living entities transmigrate from one body to another. It is explained in the second chapter that living entities transmigrating from one body to another, just one changes the dress. This change of dress is due to his attachment to material existence. As long as he is captivated by this false manifestation, he has to continue transmigrating from one body to another. Due to his desire to lord it over the material nature, he is put into such undesirable circumstances. Under the influence of material nature, the entity is born sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic, as a saintly man, as a bug. This is going on. And in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances, yet he is under the influence of material nature. How he is put into such different bodies is explained here. It is due to association with the different modes of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three modes of nature and become situated in the transcendental position. This is called Krishna consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desires since time immemorial. But he has to change that conception. That change can be affected only by, this is very important, that change can be affected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example here is Arjuna is hearing the signs of God from Krishna. The living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long cherished desire to dominate material nature. And gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. In a Vedic mantra, it is said that he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He proportionately releases his eternal blissful life. Srila Prabhupada ki. Such a wonderful instruction from Krishna to Arjuna, Prabhuji Mataji. If we see Bhagavad Gita, we have 18 chapters, 700 verses, and the middle 6 chapters are called the essence of Bhagavad Gita. But when we move further from the 12th chapter onwards, if you see, 12th chapter is titled Devotional Service. In 12th chapter, Srila Prabhupada, I think he gave only one lecture. But in 13th chapter, you'll be surprised to know he has given 44 lectures, only on chapter 13, which is nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. If you see in the beginning of this chapter, Prabhuji Mataji, what we see here, Arjuna asked some questions to Krishna, and what are the questions asked by Arjuna? He says in 13.1, Prakṛti puruṣam chaiva kshetra kshetragam evacha etad veditum ichchami jnanam gayam cha kesava. He is asking 6 things to be explained to him by Krishna. What are those things? These 6 things: Prakrti, Puruṣa, Kshetra, Kshetragya, and Jnanam and Gayam. Knowledge, knowable, the nature, the Puruṣa, the enjoyer, the field, and the knower of the field. And why is he asking this? He has already heard the most confidential knowledge in chapter 9. He has heard opulences in whole of chapter 10, the Virat Rupa in chapter 11, and most wonderful devotion service in chapter 12. But still asking these questions, he wants to understand more. And what does he want to understand more? Every aspect of living entity life. And that's what we see in this verse. What we see in this verse. by thus he follows the way of life. The way of life means how do we live in this world. Fortunately, unfortunately, we have come to this world, material world. And when we come to the material world, we have to follow certain rules and regulations. Arjuna is so merciful to all of us that he wants everything to be clear. Whatever we want to know, it should be there. That's why he said, Bhagavad Gita, there is no question of our life which is not answered in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Everything is answered, Prabhuji Mataji. See, after telling 3 items to Arjuna, what are those 3 items? Basically, Kshetra, the field, the Jnanam, knowledge, and knowable. In 13.19, Krishna tells to Arjuna, Iti Kshetram tatha Jnanam Geyam chokta samasataha mad bhakta etad vigyaya mad bhavayu paddate. Just knowing out of 6, 3 only has been explained by Krishna. From verse number 2 to 18. What is his explanation? He says that thus the field of activity is the body, the knowledge and knowable have been summarily described by me. Arjuna is told by Krishna that these things have been summarily, not in detail, described by me. Only my devotees understand this thoroughly and thus attain my nature. Deeply think, Prabhuji Mataji, on this aspect. By knowing only the field, by knowing about the knowledge and the knowable, only, and this can be understood only by devotees, what do we get? We attain the nature as of Krishna. In the introduction of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada writes, what are the 5 subject matter of Bhagavad Gita? Anybody remembers? 5 subject matter are Isvara, Jiva, Kal, Karma. So till now, Krishna has explained about Jiva. In the 2nd chapter we have seen about the living entity. He himself told about, in which chapters? Chapter 7, opulence, chapter 10, chapter 11, in detail Krishna has told. Now he is explaining about the nature. The 13th chapter title is the nature, the enjoyer and the nature, enjoyer and the consciousness. These 3 things. So in this verse which we are going to discuss today, he is going to tell about the nature and the product of nature, which is the 3 modes of material nature. So 5 subject matter: Isvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kal and Karma. And Prabhupada has spoken on all these aspects in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So first thing in this verse, what we learn, Prabhuji? Prakṛti-stho he. What is the meaning of that? Being situated in material nature. And how do we understand? How are we situated in the material nature? For example, we are living entity, right? A living entity, part and parcel of Krishna. Mame vanso jeev loke jeev bhu sanatana. We have nothing to do with the material nature. We are completely inert from the material nature. We are simply part and parcel of Krishna. We have nothing to do with that. But still, what is happening? Sad-asat-yoni-janmasu. And we get the happiness and distress. Why do we get? Just practical example I'll tell you, Prabhuji Mataji. You are living in a society and you have a neighbor. Okay? Neighbor goes to market, he buys a lottery ticket. And he wins the lottery. what will happen to you? Should anything happen to you or should not anything? Nothing should happen to you. Strictly speaking, the neighbor has bought the lottery, he paid the money, you did not pay the money, he got the money, he did not get the money. You should not be worried, you should not be affected at all. But immediately what happens? You get pain. Why you get pain? Because of the opulence he is going to get. And why this is happening? Krishna tells in 9.1 to Arjuna, the root cause of these things. Idam tute guhyatamam prakṣvayami anasuyave jnanam vijnanam sahitam yad gyatva mokshase asubhat. What is telling? My dear Arjuna, because of you are never envious, anasuyave. That's why I am going to tell the most confidential, guhyatamam, supermost confidential knowledge I am going to give to you. And I shall impart you this most confidential knowledge and realization, not only knowledge, jnanam vijnanam sahitam, knowing which you shall be relieved from miserable condition of material existence. Only condition is, what is the condition? Anasuyave. But as our neighbor gets the lottery ticket and he wins that, because of our nature, envious nature, we get pain. And suppose he loses something, we get the happiness. So there is no association as far as concerned for us in that situation. But still we are affected. Why? Because we have connected ourselves to the neighbor and we are thinking ourselves in relation to the neighbor. That's why we are affected on this. Krishna says, bhuṅkte, prakṛti-jān guṇān. Bhuṅkte means enjoys. There are two things, prakrti and puruṣaḥ. Prakrti means material nature. Puruṣaḥ, all of us can be puruṣaḥ. Even Mataji is called puruṣaḥ basically. In the Shastras, as per the Shastra, there also puruṣaḥ. Puruṣaḥ means what? Enjoyer. When we think, I am the enjoyer, I want to become puruṣaḥ. That's why Prabhupada wrote in the purport so heavily that you want to lord over the material nature. And because of the lording over nature on the material nature, we suffer in this material world. So puruṣaḥ, who wants to enjoy? But can we really enjoy, Prabhuji Mataji? Truly speaking, all our senses, 5 working senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, our mind, everything you employ, but still we cannot enjoy. Practically, how can we understand this aspect? Because jnanam vijnanam sahitam we are talking about. You think of most relatable dish which you like, the most, anything, sweet, sour, whatever is there you like, right? So what happens? Somebody comes, he knows that this is your most favorable dish. He serves you, you are very happy, right? And then you start eating, releasing that, honoring the prasadam. He brings another plate. Oh, thank you, nice. Another plate. He brings one more plate. You are thinking, is it right? But he doesn't stop. Keeps bringing one more plate. Same dish is there, which is more favorable dish for you. And initially it was giving you so much joy, so much you were enjoying. But the moment you got over and over, that same dish is giving you trouble. You cannot enjoy. Super enjoyer is Krishna. What reminds us? 5.29 Bhagavad Gita. What he says? Bhuktaram yagatapsam sarvalok maheswaram surdasara bhutanam gyatvam santim richati. Bhuktaram yagatapsam. Ultimate beneficiary Bhuktaram. Who is? Who is the enjoyer? Krishna. He only can enjoy. All rest in the whole creation, all universe are to be enjoyed. We, all living entities, whole of material creation, everything to be enjoyed. But to be enjoyed by whom? By Krishna. But tell me one thing, Prabhuji Mataji. We come to the temple, right? Every day. We come, we dance, we sing. We are dancing and singing for whom? For Krishna, right? So we are not dancing and singing for ourselves. But are we enjoying or not? We are enjoying. Why? Because our goal for enjoyment is Krishna. When we think to please Krishna, automatically we are pleased. There is no doubt about it. So, very simple, very clear that if puruṣaḥ, the enjoyer, he wants to enjoy, he cannot enjoy, he has to be enjoyed by Krishna, then only we can get the enjoyment. Srimati Radharani in a Braj, we are sitting in the Braj, always wants to please Krishna in a way there is nothing left for the pleasure. And this is never ending, like a competition, it goes on. Krishna wants to please Radharani, Radharani wants to please Krishna, never ending competition goes on. That should be the mood of a devotee, Prabhuji, Mataji. Next very important thing in this verse is guṇa-saṅgo asya. Guṇa-saṅgo asya, that means association with the material nature. The modes of material nature are such that any point of time of your life in this material world, you cannot be away from the modes of material nature. Prabhuji Mataji, in the 18.40 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells to Arjuna, very straight, clear words, Prabhuji Mataji. What he says? Na tadasti prathivyam va divi devesu va punaha sattvam prakṛti-jair muktam yadebhi syatribhir gunaihi. There is no being existing either here in this material world or among the demigods in the higher planetary system which is freed from these three modes of material nature, born from material nature. Now you will be surprised that this statement of Krishna, that not only in this material world, even the higher planets, that means even the Indraloka and all the up to Satyaloka, Brahma's Loka, every living entity is bound by three modes of material nature. Without getting released from this material nature, modes of material nature, we cannot come to Krishna. How this is possible, we will see, Prabhuji, in a while. So after 13th chapter finishes, in 14th chapter, Krishna tells about the modes of material nature. The statement of Krishna is so wonderful, Prabhuji Mataji. In 14.1, because he gives the foundation. Suppose I tell you, Prabhuji, go to the market and bring something, please. Unless you know the purpose, you will not release that thing, right? Unless I give you some task and don't know the purpose, you are not a robot. You are not a machine that you put a button and you start working that activity. You are a human being. You have a thinking process. You want to understand what it is. So Krishna is telling very clearly to Arjuna. He says, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, 14.1, Param bhuyam pravakṣyami jnanam jnanam uttamam yadyatva munaya sarve param siddhim ito gataha. Krishna has told in 9th chapter most confidential knowledge, whole of 7 to 12 chapters. But see in this verse what he is telling. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom. That means whatever he has told, over and above he is telling now, I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, which all sages have attained, knowing which all sages have attained the supreme perfection. Perfect is only Krishna, right? But we attach ourselves to Krishna, we also become perfect. So he is saying to Arjuna that Arjun, I am declaring to you now that knowledge by knowing which even the sages have attained the perfection. Then he says further, and Prabhupada writes very nicely in the purport of this verse, Prabhuji Mataji. He says, this knowledge is far, far superior to all the process of knowledge thus far explained. Not only Prabhupada is writing purport, this knowledge is far, far superior of all this process of knowledge thus far explained. And knowing this, many attained perfection. Thus it is expected that one who understands this 14th chapter will attain perfection. Think of Prabhuji Mataji. Each and every verse of Krishna's lotus mouth which is coming, in itself like a full dose for us to take to him. Full dose. Then he says in second verse, 14.2, idam jnanamupasritya mamsardam agataha sarge apinopajayante pralayena evathanti cha. Very nice, Prabhuji Mataji. He is telling, by becoming fixed in this knowledge, which knowledge? Which knowledge we are talking about? Modes of material nature. We are talking modes of material nature because in our words, guṇa-saṅgo, we are associating the gunas, which is the three modes of material nature. We are talking about modes of material nature. What is given here? By becoming fixed in this knowledge, that's the modes of material nature, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. If we clearly understand these three modes of material nature as explained by Krishna in 14th chapter, you get the nature like Krishna's own nature. And not only that, thus established, once you attain that nature, one is not born at the time of creation and disturbed at the time of annihilation. So if somebody is situated in this knowledge of three modes of material nature as explained in Bhagavad Gita, at the time of creation he is not born, at the time of annihilation he is not disturbed. Prabhupada writes very nice things in the purport, Prabhuji Mata. He says, after acquiring perfect transcendental knowledge, one acquires the qualitative equality. Guṇa-saṅgo asya, we are talking guṇa-saṅgo asya. So gunas, so we get qualitative equality in the gunas with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Becoming free from the repetition of birth and death. That is the whole thing. We want to get released from the repetition of birth and death. And Prabhupada is giving the solution for that, formula for that. Krishna is giving formula for that. By acquiring this knowledge, you get free from repetition of birth and death. One does not, however, now somebody is worried, okay, I have my own identity. Prabhupada writes, however, one does not lose his identity as an individual soul. You will always remain individual soul. You will never merge with Krishna. And further he says, generally in the material world, whatever knowledge we get is contaminated. Whole world, creation, whatever knowledge we get is contaminated. By three modes of contamination is by the three modes of material nature. Knowledge which is not contaminated by the three modes of material nature is called transcendental knowledge. So definition of transcendental knowledge is that knowledge which is not contaminated by three modes of material nature. As soon as one is situated in that transcendental knowledge, he is on the same platform as Supreme Person. That means he is immediately situated in the same platform as Supreme Person. And to obtain such knowledge, what to do? We want to obtain that knowledge. So we same platform as the Krishna. To obtain such knowledge, one must develop all these spiritual qualities. But we should be very careful, Mataji. Like we have the example from our Upanishads. The two were sitting in the same tree, same branch. One is the Sakshi, another is the enjoyer. But he is the subordinate. We are always Das. We should remember always our position. Even though we may be sitting on the same platform, and Prabhupada gives sometimes very nice example. Suppose king is on a throne, right? So king is sitting on a throne, but there is a bug also on the throne. They are on the same platform. But are they having same position? Bug is a bug, king is a king. So we are a living entity, and Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna himself. So it says, one who does develop the spiritual qualities is not affected either by creation or by destruction of this material world. And how do we understand in practical way, Prabhuji Mataji, this? In 2003 or 1, I don't remember exactly, there was a huge earthquake in Dwarka. Full destruction was there in Dwarka. Our Guru Maharaj, and we had a very old guest house, wooden stair, wooden structure. He started trembling like anything. Some devotees were Maharaj. And they were so scared for their life, they started coming down. Running down, not coming down, running down to save themselves. They asked, Maharaj, let's go, let's go, let's go. I said, what happened? Maharaj, earthquake, everything is shaking. Shaking like anything. Maharaj said, let it shake. How does it matter? Sit down, let us read Bhagavad Gita. In that situation, Maharaj did not move. He was sitting there. When you are situated in this knowledge, then you are not disturbed by the destruction or not affected by the creation. That is the position of a devotee. So we should disassociate from these gunas. Now we are talking that we have to dissociate from the gunas. We should not be affected, we should not have association these three gunas. So jnanam vijnanam sahitam, Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, both are what? Both are basically science of God. So how we understand practical example? Krishna has given very nice example, 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 10th verse. But Krishna is telling Arjuna, Brahmani adhaya karmani sangam takva karotiha lippete sana papena padmapantrim ambasa. Very nicely Krishna is telling to Arjuna, Arjuna, don't worry. How you get freed from this mode of material nature is formalized here. What is telling? He is telling, one who performs his duty sangam taktva karotiya, without attachment. The formula is, see, in 3.5 Bhagavad Gita it says, there is never a time when you will not be doing any activity. Always you have to engage in some other activity. So, he is saying, but what you should do the activity without any attachment and surrendering the results unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So two things you have to do. Do the actions without attachment, result still will come. Doesn't mean result will not come. Result will come. Surrender your results to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then what happens? You are not affected by the sinful action. Whatever action you are doing, you are not affected by that. And Krishna gives the example now. As the lotus leaf is untouched by the water. Where is lotus grown? In a mud, pond, right? But there is a lot of fill, lot of mud is there, but lotus leaf is not affected by that. Not only that, how much amount of water you are pouring on the lotus leaf, not a single drop remains on the lotus leaf. Be in that situation, Prabhuji Mataji. If you are in that situation, then definitely you will get not affected by the three modes of material nature. Another practical example I will give you. How do we see that? Most of us have hopefully car, right? Or a scooter. Some vehicle is there. So there are two things. What are two things? Suppose let's take example of a car. Car is there, driver is there, and you are sitting on the back seat. Few people are sitting on the back seat. Now, car goes and hits another car, or goes and hits somebody. Somebody's fatal accident, or something happens, or some broken. Police catches. What police will do, Prabhuji Mataji? Who hit? Car. Car is the one who has hit. But who will be caught? The driver. Why driver is caught? Driver can say, I have nothing to do with this. Car has gone and hit. What is my fault? What is the driver's fault? What is his fault, driver? Driver has taken the control of car. We are trying to control. The moment we are trying to control the situation ourselves, we don't leave it to Krishna, we are in trouble, like this car driver. So car driver will be definitely punished. But other persons who are sitting on the back seat, police will catch them, you also come must with jail? No. They will not ask them. Why? They are not controlling the car. The one who is controlling, he will be the punished person. There is another example Prabhupada gives many times, Prabhuji Mataji, on this aspect. What example Prabhupada gave? He gave the example of an iron rod and the fire. Must have heard. When iron rods associates with the fire, what happens? After some time, you cannot make a difference between the iron and the fire. Iron becomes so hot, flames come out of this, it looks like as a fire. Right? But the moment iron rod comes out from the fire, it gets its original position. Same way, the living entity is associating in the material nature. Associating with material nature, that means all these gunas, they are affecting us. That's why sukha dukkha. We are having happiness and distress. Otherwise, we have nothing to do with the happiness and distress, Prabhuji Mataji. And that is what we should do. That we should be away from. In second chapter, Krishna has told, labha labho jaya jayo, sukh dukkhe samay kritva. He has told so many slokas that you should not be affected by these things. And that's why Krishna says to Arjuna in 2.45, what he says? Traya gunna visaya veda, nistar gunna bhavarjuna, nirdando nita sasvato, niryoga chema atman. Krishna is telling Arjuna, Arjun, you rise above the three modes of material nature. And these three modes, satoguna, rajoguna, and tamoguna. All these three modes binds us. In 14th chapter, Krishna explains later on, how do they bind us, these three modes. For example, mode of goodness. Somebody says all the demigods, they are in the mode of goodness, right? Kings or the opulent person in mode of passion. And all the lower grade people, they are all the mode of ignorance. So how even the mode of goodness binds us? Any idea? What do we get in mode of goodness? Happiness. So mode of goodness binds us by happiness. Passion by desires. And ignorance by madness. They all bind us. So Krishna is telling, Tragunna Visaveda, Nirstagunna Bhavarjuna. Arjuna, you rise above three modes. Now, Jnanam Vijnanam Sahitam again. So how do we understand by a practical example, how do we rise above three modes? So nice example is given by Maharaj. Suppose you are going on the road, you are traveling in a car and you see a signal. What happens, Prabhuji Mataji? You have to stop. Red light is there, you have to stop. So these three modes are like the signal on a red light. Every moment we are controlled by them. But suppose you are sitting in a helicopter in the air and red light is below. You see there is a red light. Will you stop there? You will not stop there because you are above these three modes. So Krishna is telling to Arjuna, Arjuna, you rise above three modes. And Prabhupada writes in the purport of this verse, as long as material body exists, there are actions and reactions in the material modes. There will be actions and reactions. One has to learn tolerance in the face of dualities such as happiness and distress. Very famous verse. What is that? Matra spasthastu kaunteya sitosha sukhdugda agamnita tantitikchasva bharata. Matra spasthastu kaunteya sitosha sukhdugda. You, Arjun, think all this happiness and distress is like changing of seasons. It's like that only. So, he says, cold or warmth, and by tolerating such dualities, become free from the anxieties regarding the gain and loss. This transitional position is achieved in full Krishna consciousness, which is when one is fully dependent on good will of Krishna. It means what, Prabhuji? That means we should 24/7 dependent on the good will of Krishna. Means what? We are not controlling, we are to be controlled, we are not enjoying, we are to be enjoyed by Krishna. He is controlling. When we are in that situation, we are not affected by three modes of material nature. Prabhupada writes in the purport, the transmigration of the body from one body to another body. And he says changing the dress, like vasansi jina netha vihaya. That Krishna tells to Arjuna 2.22. Vasansi jina yatha vihaya saranavani granati naroparani tatha vihaya saranani jinani anyati samyati navani dehi. He's telling clearly, a person puts on new dress, giving up old ones. The soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up old and useless ones. And how these things happen, Prabhuji Mataji? It is all minute, independent, free will given by Krishna to us. That we have minute, free will. And we we misuse every time that's free will. How we transmigrate from, see, when we are migrating from one body to another, Prabhupada writes in the purport, sometimes you get a body of demigod, body of a human being, or a hog, or a dog, or a cat, or a saint, any body you can get. How do we get these bodies? Very nicely explained by Krishna in 8th chapter. Yam yam vapisam vajam tajante kalevaram tam tam eveti kontasat bhava bhavita. Antakale che mamema is okay. But yam yam vapi smaran bhavam in 8.6. Ki whatever bhava, whatever you are thinking at the time of leaving the body, you get the same body. And best example, whose example we have, Prabhuji Mataji? Bhajad Bharat Maharaj. Very nice example. That leaving the body is thinking of the dear child, and he takes the body of a deer. Right? So we have to be very careful. That's why in 15.8 Krishna says, Sariram yadvapnu yachapat kinustraha ghrato yetani vayur gandhani vasayat. That your whatever actions you have done, whatever you have accumulated in this material world is carried over from this world to another by the Sukshma Sarira, and example Vayur Gandhani Vasat, like the aroma is taken by the air from one place to another, nobody sees that, Prabhuji Mataji. So that is why it is so important that, and Prabhupada writes very nice thing, the last thing, time is running out, in the purport, he says, the change can be affected. Which change? We want to change our consciousness, we want to change our consciousness enjoying the modes of melting nature. The change can be affected only by the hearing from authoritative sources. Otherwise, this change cannot happen. So we have to hear from authoritative sources, and very nicely Prahlad Maharaj says, Srunam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smranam Padasevanam, Archanam Vandam Dasyam, Sakhyam Atmanivedanam. Iti Pumsar Pita Vishnu, Bhakti Nivalakshana, Kriyate Bhavati Yadha, Tanmayedhi Uttamam. He says, hearing and chanting about transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia and pastimes of the Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord with respectable worship, with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming His servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything to Him. In other words, serving Him with body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. Just tell me one thing, last thing, Prabhuji Mataji. By Krishna's mercy, Prabhupada blessings, we are at least in this position today. We are able to do some bhakti, whatever we are doing it. But the waning years, imagine when we are invalid. We are not able to recite the slokas. We are not able to attend the classes. We are not able to attend the Mangala Aartis. We are not able to do. What is left for us to do at that time? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Whatever we are doing now is the preparation of chanting the holy names at that time. If we are able to do this preparation properly, are able to chant the holy name at that time, surely, definitely, we are going to back Krishna's sloka. Otherwise, there is no hope. So these 3 modes, whatever is there, and we try to enjoy it, they are not going to help us. What is going to help us? Coming out of 3 modes, Prabhuji Mataji. This so is nice, Krishna has told in this sloka, that he is explaining further. We will see tomorrow about the material nature, that today he spoke about this, about the material nature and the modes, right? And how do they affect us? And how do we get sad-asad-yoni-janmasu? Because of the association, we get good or bad bodies in the next life. We want the spiritual body, we have to remember to chant always Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. If there is any question, please, or comments or additions. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hrishikesh Krishna Prabhu, for your nice class. So, one thing we should understand that to change in the modes of nature, only the human beings have the power to change the modes of nature. And no other species, they can change their nature. In association we can get, if we are getting the association with the devotees or the persons who are in the mode of goodness, we can achieve the mode of goodness. But if the monkey is getting the association of cow is in the mode of goodness, and monkey is in the mode of ignorance. So he can never get the association. By getting the association of cow, he can never get his mode, he cannot change. So in the human life only, this is only the blessings of Krishna that we can change our modes. In other species, this is not possible.
In the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in the end, I think 52nd verse probably, Krishna says to Arjuna, the darshan kankshina, the sudursanam rupam, that this two-handed form which you are seeing is very rare to be seen even by the demigods. They are also always wanting to see that form which I am showing to you in front of you. Why? Because this human body, as you rightly said, Prabhu, is so important. In the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we discuss the actions, the karma yoga. Out of the 84 lakhs yonis, including the demigods, only freedom we have in the human form, because this is marginal energy, right? We can either go up or down. That free will is with us. Which there are so many verses which I have to skip. And in Brahmaji, when not Brahmaji, Lord Narasimhadev is speaking to Lord Brahma, when after the Narasimhadev has slain the Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad Maharaj is there. Sorry, the Bali Maharaj. When Bali Maharaj is punished, and then Brahmaji comes, he prays, and then Lord replies to that prayers. He says one sloka, 8:22-25, Prabhuji. He says, Yada katya jivatma sansamaran nij karma bhihi nana yoni sunisoyam paurusim gatim avrajet. What he says? While rotating in the cycle of birth and death, again and again in different species of his own fruitive activities, each and every word is so important. By his own fruitive activities, we are rotating in cycle of birth and death, again, different species. The dependent living entity, that means living entity dependent, by good fortune, may happen to become a human being. By good being. Thus, human birth is very rarely obtained. Yes, rightly said, Prabhu. This human birth is so important.
That is the point. The asad-yonisu is not meant for the other species. They will progress by default.
That is time-bound promotion.
They can't go in the asad-yonisu. Further, they will progress. But in the human life, we can go anywhere, in heaven or in hell.
See, 400,000 of human bodies we have. 400,000. That means in this we have a body of a devotee, non-devotee. Anything can happen, Prabhu.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else, Prabhuji Mataji? Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Gurudev ki, Nityai Gaur Premanande.